Hello everyone, welcome back to the King Speaks Ghost Stories. True ghost stories from, of course, you know who. And it's really happened in my life. There's different stories, and you can check out the playlist if you have missed other stories. So I'm just gonna first start out with a story by me and my sister Shakita. And of course I called her Kita for short. So one evening we were coming back from, I don't know where we were coming back from, somewhere. I'll never forget this, which I never forget anything when it's really spooky and scary. So, we were, of course, being the kids, we were racing towards the front door of the house. I remember it too, because, I was like, I'm going to be the first one in the house. Also. And, of course, she takes off running. And naturally, my sister was older than me. She was faster than me. But at the time, I think I was 10 or 11. And she's a few years older than I am. So I would run up to the door. At the same time, we reached the front door. Okay, now this is where it's strange. Now, of course, my parents, they lock the door and everything after we leave. Why would the door be unlocked and pulled open for us to come in? Now, I know you probably thinking to yourself, like, what do you mean pulled open? I mean pulled open. The door, we jumped on the front porch, we opened up the screen door, and only to run into the door opening for us. And we just did, I have never seen I'm talking about, I immediately did a back jump off the porch. Now keep in mind, my parents were still walking towards the house because we ran up there. But me and her did a back jump like at least 5-6 feet off that porch because of what we saw. And we just stood there, froze up like, oh my God, something, I ain't gonna say someone, but something opened the door. Let me give you some background. The house we staying in, if you look at the previous stories on my playlist, ghost stories, most of these stories come from that house. The house is just cursing. It's cursing. I'm so glad we moved from that cursed place. So, we jumped back. Daddy ran up there trying to see what's wrong. The door was open, so he went in. Of course, he goes in armed, thinking somebody broke in the house. My dad was fearless. If you knew my dad, he was fearless. Man, that man would wrestle with a bear. He probably would die, but he would get in the bear face. What bear, you ain't gonna hurt my kids? So he goes through the house and was wondering. He's like, "Did y'all leave this door open?" But he's the type of person, if he can't explain something, he gonna try to blame us for it. So I understand that. And I'm like, Daddy, we didn't leave the door open. Y'all was the last one. We always first ones to the car. So Daddy stayed up the rest of that night because he thought somebody was hiding in the house or whatever. He went through everywhere. Nobody was hiding in that house other than phantoms and things like that, and specters and demons probably. But I'm telling you what, after that, I didn't even want to go in the house. I actually stayed outside for a little bit. Cause I just was like, hey, it's probably better outside the house where something is in there wanting us to come in. And of course, me and my sister, we always been kind of scary. If we can't explain something that's not explained when we open the door, you know how you have to unlock the door and all that, push the door open. We were just trying to get to the front door, see the fastest to get there. So, but we opened the door, and we always got the game where we would tag the front door, touch it, and like, I beat you. And sometimes we'd bet each other for stuff like that. All right. And she may not even remember this, but we were so young at the time. That's been years ago. But instead of us, when we pulled the screen door open, the door came open, like the door. And I know you're saying, probably the wind. I said, no, it wasn't. This door looked like it was shut, and something opened it up and said, y'all come on in. How y'all children doing? Come on into my dark embrace. I was like, no, sir. So that's what happened that one time, spooky. So next story. This is me in that house by myself. And my dad and his cousin were gone. He came into town, cousin's name was Howard. When he came into town, they split doing all kind of stuff. But he would come in, Howard would buy all kind of candy and stuff for him. Like, well, all right, yeah, go ahead. I love it. All right. So, and when he when my dad, he was so consumed with seeing his family, because he was pretty much a loner like I am. I'm a loner and black sheep outcast. So, and I don't mind being alone. Just sometimes you do like to see people. And you know, when he saw his cousin come in, they was real close. They would go, so they left that night. They left that night, said we'll be back, blah blah. I said, okay, cool. So you know me, I've been in this house long enough to know if you by yourself, you leave doors open so you can run out of there. And I know how that sounds to some of you guys. You guys probably be laughing. I said, but you leave the doors open so you can run out the door. You don't have, because what if you run to the door trying to open it, some is already on you. So, so I know that may sound funny to some of you guys, but I thought like that. Especially in this house, you have to live in a haunted house where you know things can happen or have experience to understand what I'm talking about. So my bike was in the hall. Now keep in mind, the first thing I'm thinking about, like, I'm not gonna ride my bike. It's like 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. It's summertime. So if I ran outside, it wasn't cold. All right. So I was in the front room watching TV, and I kept hearing what sounded like footsteps in the hall. And I was like, so I get up. I didn't dare look in the hall. Now keep in mind, I didn't look in the hall, but I kept listening. Until curiosity got the best of me. I heard movement. I heard footsteps coming. Only for me to go look in the hall to see a shadow shape at the end of the hall in the doorway. Okay, now, forget the footsteps. I'm looking at the shadow in the end of the hall. Now, no lie, y'all. No lie. At the end of the hall, something, you know how the lights cut off in the room, but it's still light illuminating that can come in the room. And this, whatever it was black. I'm talking about pitch black, like tar charcoal. And I was like, oh, no. And immediately, I turned, ran out the house. That was it for me. Nearly had a heart attack in the hall. I wasn't about to go try to grab the bike. Try to get the bike. Because what if you could jump? The bike was in the middle of the hall. I'm at the end of the hall. The thing was at the end of the hall. We could have met halfway. I could have been on the bike. The thing could have grabbed me and drugged me in the room. You know what could happen. So I immediately ran out the house. Left everything on, doors open. I come back to see Daddy and how Daddy like, why you leave all the stuff on in the house? I didn't tell him. I didn't ever tell my dad about nothing. Because I was like, man, they're not going to believe me, no way. Now, me and my sisters, though, we were always talking about the things happening because we experienced it together, some of us. So, that's another weird, scary, spooky occurrence in that house. Now, here, the door is open and closing. The door is open and closing on us. At the time, let me think back. It was summertime. I remember it was summertime. And we left the doors open. The screen door was always shut. So the screen door kept opening and shutting on its own. But it was both screen doors, the back and the front. So I'm playing the Super Nintendo at the time. It was either Super Nintendo or Nintendo. One of those. So my sister was in her room. I was in the room, the TV room. We had a TV room with just a couch and TV in there. Nobody slept in it. So I'm in there like, all right, cool, play the Nintendo a little bit, and we gotta go outside later. My sister in her room, I don't know what she was doing, and my dad was in his room. All of a sudden, we hear a screen door open. You can hear these doors open, and we hear bam. I said, okay. So I'm thinking Dad went out. I'm thinking Dad and my sister, they went out something. All of a sudden, we heard about bam again, and that's when I paused the game, and I was like. And you get quiet to hear it again, and we kept hearing the door slamming. And all of a sudden, I hear my dad scream, y'all stop slamming that door. I ain't gonna tell y'all again, he gets on to us. And so me and my sister get up and we head towards the door. We all we was in the hall at the same time. We heard screen door open and slam again. Then my dad came out in the hall, was approaching our rooms, only to run into us, and he heard the door slam twice. And we just all stood there. And Daddy went towards the doors. He was the type of person to investigate because his protection was us. He would protect us. He kept going to the doors, looking at them, and he was like, "Who kept coming in out these doors?" So and of course, me and my sister looked at each other and were like, "Oh, we already know." It's like you get used to things happening. So that's the weird part. No one can explain how the doors open and shut. All right, now last story for you guys, and it kept you on for 10 minutes. And thank you for listening to this far. If you have, my dad experienced this. He experienced this. Finally, something got to him. Now I know how that sounds. How he's like, I'm glad something happened to you because you didn't believe us. No, I wasn't like that. I'm glad nothing happened to him. But this one time, that's one. He would take us to Bonifay, Florida. My grandma lived in Bonifay, Florida, and we would go down there for 2 weeks. It's like 50 miles away from Panama City, so we'd go back and forth Panama City. Big grandma's a little bit of Panama City and things like that. Down there, spring break and foolishness. So we were down there for 2 weeks. He would take my mom and me and my sisters. So he took us down there. Said dropped us off. Now this is coming from his mouth. Dropped us off. He said he went to bed and his door was shut. And he said he turned around and sleep a little bit. He said he saw the door open and somebody in the doorway, a shadow, like he couldn't tell who it was because the light was shining on his eyes from the hall. And he was looking, and his first thought was it was one of us, until he remembered you just took them to Florida. So his next thought, my dad was a logical guy, someone broke in and they're gonna have to pay the wrath, because he said he was gonna kill him. He told me he was gonna kill him breaking in the house, which I don't blame him. Breaking in the house, you never know what they're gonna do to you. So he gets up, door still wide open. He said this is why he said the door was still open. He said somebody came to and looked in his room and didn't even shut the door, just left it open because he knew he shut the door to the room so the light wouldn't get in there from the hall. And so he said he went through the house, whole house armed. Don't know if he had a gun or knife. I think he said he had a gun and a knife. It was crazy. But he just went through the whole house. And he said he went back through the main hall only to get hit by a blast of wind. I'm talking about a gust of wind hit him in his face and it sent his hair standing on end. And he said from that, when that happened to him, now, this man dead serious when he's telling you the story. He always had a cigarette in his hand looking you dead in your eyes. He said that when that happened to him, he immediately got dressed and went out. And one of his friends, some guys he's hanging out with, they had this like, I don't know, a juke joint place, wherever. He just went there. It was open, and they kept asking him. Eddie, he said he was shaking up. They kept asking him, "Well, you all right?" And he said they kept asking him, "You sound like." Look like you seen a ghost. Like one of the guys said that. I said, I said, exactly. I said, see? And I looked at him, and we still, to this very day, we never told Daddy about what was happening in that house. Never, to this very day. We heard his experience in the house. But my mother, nothing ever happened to her, which is strange. Oh, yeah, other than the fingernail tapping. She experienced fingernail tapping on the side of the bed with me that time. But anyway, that's the end of the stories, guys. Hope you enjoyed the stories, true stories from the King. And I hope you enjoyed listening. And make sure that you had the lights on and you're not listening to this at nighttime, because you might get scared. Now, you can let your kids listen to these stories because it'll keep them interested. Now, if they're scary, don't let them listen to these stories, because then they'll, any kind of shadow, mama. You don't want to hear that. So, guys, thank you for listening. Ended it right here. You guys stay safe out there.